This is the kind of move that makes the rest of the league realize the Chicago Bears are done being reactive and are finally dictating terms in the secondary. And if you're with me until the end, you'll understand exactly perché il nome de Alontae Taylor è oggi al centro di una conversa seria in Hallis Hall, and perché essa possibile chegada mudaria immediatamente il jeito como a gente fala da defesa desti time. Welcome to Bears News Fan Report. I'm here with you like always, talking straight, no fluff, bringing you the most serious updates, the most credible rumors, and the kind of detailed breakdown you expect from somebody who lives this team every single day. Tonight, I'm going to walk you through what's happening behind the scenes with the Bears' defensive backfield, why this front office has been hunting for the right piece to stabilize the cornerback group after reinforcing the pass rush, how a player like Taylor fits exactly what this coaching staff demands in terms of versatility, toughness, and scheme intelligence, what his arrival would mean for the hierarchy with Jaylon Johnson, Kyler Gordon, and the young depth, what it would signal about the long-term vision around Caleb Williams and this roster's championship window, and why his situation in New Orleans has opened a crack that a focused and aggressive franchise like Chicago cannot ignore. I'll break down the path that brought us here, I'll connect it with the last big trade moves, I'll explain the financial angle, I'll tell you what I'm hearing about how the Bears view him, and only at the end, I'll put a label, cold and clear, on where things actually stand. For now, sit with the idea and feel what it represents. This is not just about adding another name. This is about a statement of intent in the secondary. When you look at what the Bears have been building lately, it's obvious there was a logic. First fix the front, then fix the back. The move for Joe Tryon-Shoyinka wasn't random. It was a recognition that you cannot keep asking your back end to survive on islands while the quarterback stands clean. You build pressure, you compress time, you help your corners. But smart teams don't stop halfway. The next step is always to make sure that when that ball comes out fast, you have people who can close, tackle, carry routes, disguise coverages, and not fall apart the moment an injury hits. That's exactly where Alontae Taylor's profile becomes impossible to ignore. We're talking about a corner who came into the league with solid man skills, grew under a demanding defensive mind in New Orleans, learned to play inside and outside, showed he can survive on an island, drive on routes, trigger downhill and run support, and handle responsibility in different shells. That type of toolbox is gold for a staff that wants to mix-match coverages, show too high, spin late, trust their nickel and boundary guys to communicate and adapt. And if you've watched the Bears closely this season, you know how thin the margin has been whenever one starter goes down or isn't 100%. Rotations get tight, responsibilities get stretched, and suddenly one weak spot becomes the opponent's GPS target every single third down. That's why I'm not here talking about a fantasy name. I'm talking about a logical extension of what this team has already tried to do. The flirtation with Taylor around the deadline was real in concept and perfectly consistent with the direction of this roster. Add a young veteran with starting experience, still ascending, under control, who fits the culture and gives you scheme flexibility. You already have Jaylon Johnson as a high-end outside corner. You have Kyler Gordon as a competitive nickel with instincts in tackling. You have young guys fighting for depth roles. Dropping Taylor into that room doesn't create chaos. It creates layers. It lets you survive injury waves without playing musical chairs with practice squad bodies. It lets your coordinator call games with aggression instead of fear, knowing that your third corner isn't a target, but a weapon. It also sends a message to the locker room. This front office is not satisfied with good enough. They're trying to build something that holds in December and January, not just looks interesting in September. And when I talk about Taylor, I'm not only looking at the tape, I'm looking at what his profile says about where this team is mentally. He's not a diva name. He's not a billboard signing. He's a football move. He's a player whose value is in the details: route recognition, leverage discipline, ability to play through contact, willingness to tackle on the perimeter, energy on special teams if needed, alignment with a blue-collar defensive identity. That's exactly the type of acquisition that tells me Ryan Poles and this staff are thinking long-term structure, not short-term headlines. You bring in that kind of guy, suddenly your matchups against the top passing attacks in the conference look different. You don't have to roll help and panic to one side every snap. You can trust multiple matchups, disguise, take away first reads, and force quarterbacks to hitch into pressure. In a league where everyone is trying to isolate and humiliate your CB3, having a player like Taylor can be the difference between surviving and contending. Now, let's layer in the context from New Orleans, because that's where the door even cracks open. Taylor has developed there, no doubt, but the Saints are in a strange place. Half in, half out of a rebuild, juggling veteran contracts, trying to squeeze value from assets without fully resetting. When a team like that has a player who still has market value and a group of potential trade partners circling, the tension is obvious. Do you cash in now? Do you overplay your hand? Do you write it out and pray the compensatory pick formula saves you? That's where negotiations can get complicated fast, especially when the rest of the league watches other blockbuster deals reshape the price point for premium defensive backs. Once team pays a wild toll for an elite corner, everyone else with a decent starter thinks they're sitting on a gold mine. Sometimes that works. A lot of times it doesn't, and you scare away smart buyers. The Bears, to their credit, have not been behaving like a desperate team willing to throw picks around just to say they did something. They've been targeted, and that's important here. Adding Taylor has to strengthen the roster without cutting into the draft capital and financial flexibility that protect this organization over the next 3 years. From a cap and roster building standpoint, that's why this potential move is so intriguing. You're not talking about an aging name at the end of a bloated contract. You're talking about a defensive back whose prime is in front of him, whose next deal, if structured correctly, can slide within a core that already includes foundational pieces on the defensive line and at corner, while the offense is built around a young franchise quarterback. This is how you stack windows. Cost-controlled superstar under the center, premium positions around him on deals that reflect performance but don't strangle your depth. Taylor, plugged into that puzzle, gives you the freedom to be aggressive with your fronts, to invest in complementary pieces, and to sustain a defensive identity instead of rebooting it every offseason. That's why when I look at this rumor, I don't see noise. I see alignment. I see a front office targeting the right archetype at the right time. And I'll tell you something else as someone who watches this community closely. Moves like this change how Bears fans feel about Sundays. When you wake up knowing your team isn't going to be schemed to death in the slot, when you know you've got multiple corners who can compete against modern route combinations, when you know a single injury doesn't flip your coverage into a liability, the whole energy shifts. You start expecting stops instead of hoping for them. That matters for a fan base that has suffered through too many years of bend until it breaks defenses. A potential addition like Taylor signals seriousness. It tells the league Chicago is not content with just having a couple of stars. They want a complete unit. Now, I want you in this with me. Before I put the final stamp on it, drop your thoughts down below. Do you see Alontae Taylor as the kind of move that confirms the Bears are building a real, sustainable defense around their young core, or would you rather keep every pick and ride with internal development? How much are you willing to pay, in terms of draft compensation and future money, for a corner who brings versatility, physicality, and experience in multiple roles? Do you trust this front office to pick the right spot to be aggressive after what we've seen in the trenches? Tell me your ideal blueprint. Jalen locked in as your alpha, Taylor as your movable piece, Gordon thriving inside, plus a wave of young depth behind them, or a different configuration? Be specific. There is no official announcement, no trade call logged with the league office that you somehow missed. What we have is a scenario grounded in real interest, in real past conversations, in a real schematic and cultural fit that makes so much football sense that it feels tangible. And that's exactly why I've walked you through how impactful it would be if the Bears decide to go back to that table under the right conditions. If you want to stay on top of every step of this story and every other serious move around the Chicago Bears, make sure you're subscribed to Bears News Fan Report, turn on your notifications, hit that like button, and share this video with that one friend who texts you every time our secondary gets cooked on third down. Here you're always going to get fast updates, deep analysis, and a voice that respects your time and your passion for this team.